Hi, in this video we're going to take a look at how you go about programming your calculator to automatically compute the quadratic formula, which gives the roots for quadratic equations. Turn the calculator on, click Program. What we want to do is to create a new program, so I'm going to right arrow over to New, and then I want to create a new one, so I will select one or press Enter. First thing we need to do is to select the name for this, so the green letters indicate the letters you're going to select. So for example, Q is the number 9, and then U, A, D, and I can do a space down here at the bottom, and we'll try formula. So let's see, formula. Well, okay, it didn't like the space. ORM, then the L is going to be up here. Okay, so it doesn't appear to want more than that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to press Enter. Now, the first thing we want to do is to get the input information. So I'm going to select Program, and I want the input-output commands. So I'm going to move over, and I want the calculator to prompt. So that's going to be option number 2. And I want it to prompt for values A, B, and C. Now at this point, notice that the cursor is not indicating an A inside, which means alpha notation. So I have to click alpha A, then come down to the comma to separate that from alpha B, comma, alpha C, and that has that line done. So I'm going to press Enter. I want to give an output, so I need to now press Program, Input, Output, and what I want to do is to display. So I'll select option number 3 or come down to Display. And if you'll recall from the quadratic formula, it's a negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. The plus or minus means there are two different options or two different solutions. I'm going to represent or display one option at a time. So I'm going to first do is the negative of alpha b. Then I'm going to do plus the square root. And square root is second there. And then it's going to be b squared. So I'm going to do alpha b, and then come over to the squared key, subtract 4 times a times c. So there's what's inside of the square root. I'm going to close the parentheses to close the square root. Do another parentheses here to close the numerator up. Then I'm going to do divided by, open a parentheses, and it's going to be divided by 2a. Close that parentheses and press Enter. I also want to display the root where it's a negative b minus the square root. So I now go to Program, come over to Input, Output. I want to display, so I'll come down to option 3 and press Enter. And now I'm going to do parentheses, negative alpha b subtract the square root, parentheses, of alpha b squared, okay, and that's going to be minus 4 alpha a alpha c. Going to close the parentheses on the square root, going to close the parentheses on the numerator, divided by a parentheses to include the 2a in the denominator, then close the parentheses. Okay, so at this point I have that line entered, so I'm going to press Enter. And to get out of this now, we just do second quit. And to see if this thing really worked, I'm just going to do Program, Quad form is option 1, so I'm going to press option 1. Now to actually run the program, you press enter, and it asks for a value for a. Now suppose I'm doing well, I don't know, I'll just make something up, like x squared. Well, that has a coefficient of 1. Enter. Then it asks for a value for b. Well, maybe that's -2. Now the value on b is the coefficient on the x term. And then it asks for c. Maybe that's a -3. Press enter, and there you go. So you now have your calculator program to do the quadratic formula. Hold on to this because you're going to find this useful throughout the entire course of the semester.